The rain-slicked petals clung to Rosalie's trembling fingers like accusations as she knelt beside the open casket, arranging lilies that smelled too much like forgotten promises. Evelyn's face, pale and still under the chapel's harsh fluorescence, stared up at her with eyes that would never open again, and in that frozen moment, Rosalie felt the world crack open, not with a scream, but with the silent shatter of 12 years unraveling into nothing. She was invisible here, just the florist in her muddied apron, wiping tears that no one noticed onto the hem of her skirt, while Evelyn's family milled about, their whispers sharp as thorns. Who even hired her? Looks like she wandered in from the storm. Rosalie straightened, her knees aching from the cold marble floor of St. Mary's Episcopal in downtown Savannah, Georgia, where the humid southern air pressed against the stained-glass windows like a judgmental congregation. She was 37 now, her body a map of quiet endurance, faint laugh lines etching her hazel eyes, auburn hair pulled into a practical braid that hid the wild curls Evelyn used to tease her about. Back then, in the sticky summers of their youth, Evelyn would tug at those strands, pulling Rosalie close under the Spanish moss-draped oaks of Forsyth Park, murmuring, "You're my wildflower, Rosie. No one's taming you but me." But that was before the secrets, before the world demanded they bury their love deeper than any grave. She stepped back, surveying the floral arch she'd woven herself, white roses for purity, lavender for devotion, interspersed with Evelyn's favorite magnolias that bloomed defiant even in the fall. The family had ordered something tasteful, nothing flashy, from the shop downtown, never knowing the hands crafting it belonged to the woman who'd shared Evelyn's bed, her dreams, her every stolen breath for over a decade. Rosalie's throat tightened as Mrs. Hargrove, Evelyn's mother, with her pearl necklace and lips pursed like she'd swallowed a lemon, swept in, her heels clicking authority. "Mississippi," she began, eyeing Rosalie as if she were a smudge on the pristine pews. "Rosalie," she supplied, voice steady despite the storm inside. "From blooms and whispers. I just wanted to make sure everything's perfect for Evelyn." The name caught, a hook in her chest, yanking memories to the surface. Their first kiss in a Charleston Beach house rented under false pretenses, salt air mingling with a taste of cheap wine. The way Evelyn's laughter could chase away the shadows of Rosalie's dead-end job at the library, where dusty books whispered of loves braver than theirs. Mrs. Hargrove nodded curtly, her gaze sliding past Rosalie to the arriving mourners, Evelyn's brother Thomas, his wife Clara, a flock of cousins from Atlanta who'd always treated Evelyn like the golden child she was. Rosalie faded into the alcove, her heart pounding as the service began, the priest's voice droning about eternal light and cherished memories. Cherished. The word burned. How could they cherish what they'd never seen? Evelyn, the rising star architect who designed half the waterfront condos in Savannah, had built walls around their life too, walls of not yet and for mother's sake, because in this Bible Belt cradle of the South, love like theirs was a whisper best left to the wind. As the eulogies unfolded, Rosalie slipped out to the vestibule, the rain now a relentless tattoo on the roof. She leaned against a pillar, pulling a crumpled envelope from her apron pocket, Evelyn's last letter, scrawled in the hospital bed 3 days ago, when the cancer had stolen her voice but not her fire. "Rosie, my heart's compass," it read. "If they ask, tell them about the garden we planted in secret. Tell them I was yours wholly. Don't let me go quiet." Tears blurred the ink, and Rosalie pressed it to her lips, tasting salt and ink and the ghost of Evelyn's chapstick, strawberry-scented from their lazy Sundays tangled in sheets. The door creaked, and Thomas appeared, his suit rumpled, eyes red-rimmed. He was Evelyn's shadow, the brother who'd idolized her since they were kids racing bikes down River Street. "You the florist?" he asked, voice thick. Rosalie nodded, forcing a smile that felt like glass. "The arrangements. They're beautiful. Ev would have loved them. She always said flowers were the only honest things. They bloom no matter what." Rosalie's breath hitched. Honest. If only he knew how many nights she'd spent pruning their hidden life, clipping away the truths that might wilt under scrutiny. She had a way with beauty, Rosalie murmured, her voice a threadbare veil. Thomas lingered, rubbing his neck, the weight of loss etching new lines on his boyish face. You knew her well? From the shop, I mean? The question hung like a noose. Rosalie could lie, fade back into anonymity, let Evelyn's memory be sanitized for the family album. Or she could unravel it all, petal by petal. Better than most, she said finally, the words escaping like a confession. Thomas frowned, but before he could press, the organ swelled, calling them back in. Rosalie followed, her resolve hardening like the roots of the oaks outside, deep, unyielding, ready to break through concrete. The procession to the gravesite was a blur of black umbrellas bobbing under the downpour, the earth soft and yielding as they lowered Evelyn into the family plot on Bonaventure Cemetery's misty hills. Rosalie hung at the edges, her boots sinking into the mud, watching as Clara tossed the first handful of dirt, her sobs muffled by the wind. The magnolias she'd placed on the coffin lid caught the last gray light, petals unfurling like Evelyn's rare, reckless smiles, the ones reserved for stolen weekends in the Smoky Mountains, where no one knew their names. As the crowd thinned, Rosalie approached the grave alone, kneeling to press a single wild violet against the headstone, engraved simply, Evelyn Marie Hargrove, beloved daughter and sister, 1988 to 2025. Beloved. The erasure stung deeper than the rain. She traced the letters, whispering, You were my everything, Ev. My north, my wild. A rustle behind her. Mrs. Hargrove, umbrella tilted like a shield. Young lady, she said, voice brittle. Visiting hours are over. This is private. Rosalie rose slowly, mud streaking her jeans, meeting the older woman's steel blue eyes, Evelyn's eyes, but colder, armored against the world. It's not private anymore, she said, the hook of truth catching in her throat. Not to me. Evelyn wasn't just your daughter. She was my wife. The words landed like thunder, Mrs. Hargrove's umbrella dipping as color drained from her face. What nonsense is this? Evelyn was engaged once. To David, remember? A fine man. Denial, sharp as ever. Rosalie pulled the envelope from her pocket, holding it out like evidence. Read it. She wrote it for you. For all of you. We married in Vermont 12 years ago, quietly, because she loved you too much to shatter your world. But she was mine first, last, always. Mrs. Hargrove snatched the letter, her hands shaking as she scanned the looping script. The rain blurred the page, but the words held. Mom, if you're reading this, Rosalie has the ring we exchanged under the harvest moon. 12 years of sunrises in her arms, of building a life petal by petal. Honor that, please. Let her grieve with us. The umbrella clattered to the ground, forgotten, as Evelyn's mother sank onto a nearby bench, the fight leaching from her like dye in water. In the days that followed, the Hargrove home on the outskirts of Savannah became a reluctant confessional. Thomas pored over old photos Evelyn had stashed in her attic office, snaps of beach bonfires where Rosalie appeared cropped out, or garden parties where their hands brushed just out of frame. How did we miss this? He asked one evening, over lukewarm coffee in the kitchen that still smelled of Evelyn's chamomile tea. Rosalie sat across from him, her first real entry into the sanctum, the walls lined with blueprints of buildings Evelyn had dreamed into being. You weren't looking, Rosalie said gently, no accusation, just the quiet truth of love's camouflage. She recounted the beginning, 25 and fumbling through Atlanta's art scene, where she'd met Evelyn at a gallery opening for up-and-coming architects. Evelyn, all sharp angles and bolder dreams, sketching skyline visions on napkins while Rosalie, a budding florist escaping her conservative upbringing in Macon, arranged centerpieces that wilted under fluorescent lights. Their eyes met over a vase of peonies, and in that glance, the world tilted, Evelyn's hand steadying Rosalie's as they laughed about the pretentious crowd. One stolen night led to mornings tangled in Evelyn's loft apartment overlooking the Chattahoochee River, where sunlight filtered through blinds like golden promises. "Run away with me," Evelyn had whispered that first dawn, her fingers tracing the curve of Rosalie's hip. But reality intruded. Evelyn's family expectations, the whispers of Savannah society that could derail her career before it soared. So they built in shadows. Weekend getaways to Tybee Island, coded texts disguised as client notes, a private ceremony in a Vermont meadow where they vowed eternity under a justice of the peace who didn't ask questions. The kitsch tin crept in slowly, like kudzu overtaking a fence. Evelyn's diagnosis came 5 years in, a rogue shadow on a routine scan, stage 3 lymphoma that turned their secret haven into a war room. Rosalie shaved Evelyn's head in their bathroom, the clippers buzzing like angry bees, tears mixing with fallen locks on the tile. "You're still the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Rosalie had lied, her voice cracking, because beauty was irrelevant when chemo stole Evelyn's appetite and the nights stretched endless with pain. Yet love, that stubborn bloom, pushed through. They traveled when they could, a road trip up the Blue Ridge Parkway, Evelyn sketching wildflower fields while Rosalie drove, her hand on Evelyn's knee like an anchor. "If I go first," Evelyn joked once, wind whipping her scarf, "promise you'll tell them. Make them see us, Rosie. The whole damn garden." Rosalie had laughed then, but the words haunted her now, as Thomas slid a photo across the table, the two of them at a Hargrove Christmas, Rosalie posing as Evelyn's old college friend, their pinkies linked behind a poinsettia. Clara entered then, her toddler on her hip, eyes softer than before. "We found the box," she said hesitantly. "In Ev's closet, letters, photos, that silver band with the engraved petals. The ring." Rosalie's throat closed. Evelyn had worn it on a chain around her neck, hidden under collars, a talisman against the world's indifference. "She never took it off," Rosalie whispered, "even at the end." The room fell silent, the weight of revelation settling like dew. Mrs. Hargrove, who'd been hovering in the doorway, stepped forward, the letter clutched in her fist. "Why didn't she tell us?" she asked, voice raw, the armor cracking. Rosalie met her gaze, seeing the flicker of Evelyn there, the girl who'd once confessed over Sunday brunch. "Mom, what if love doesn't look like Dad and you?" Mrs. Hargrove had changed the subject then, but now, in grief's unforgiving mirror, she listened. "Because she wanted your pride more than your acceptance at first," Rosalie said. "But love like ours? It doesn't stay buried. It grows, I've always said, through cracks, under stones, until the whole world's forced to bloom with it." That night, as the family gathered for Evelyn's memorial dinner, crab cakes and she-crab soup on the veranda, the river murmuring below, Rosalie stood at the head of the table, no longer the outsider. Thomas raised a glass, his voice steady for the first time since the burial. "To Evelyn, who designed not just buildings but lives. And to Rosalie, who was the foundation we never saw." Murmurs rippled, glasses clinking like hesitant applause. But the true storm brewed in the aftermath, when old friends arrived with questions sharper than sympathy. David, the ex-fiancé, showed up unannounced at the florist shop a week later, his face a mask of betrayal. "She promised me forever," he snarled, looming over the counter where Rosalie arranged funeral sprays for strangers. "And you? You slunk in like some secret shame." The shop's bell tinkled mockingly, a customer pausing with a bouquet of sympathy carnations. Rosalie set down her shears, the metal cool against her palm. "Forever was ours, David. You were the placeholder, the safe choice for photo ops and family brunches. Evelyn loved you like a brother, but me? She loved like a fire that consumes." He recoiled, the truth a slap, but in his eyes flickered not rage, but a dawning sorrow, for the woman he'd lost twice over, once to illness, once to a love he'd never glimpsed. Word spread through Savannah's gossamer social web, whispers turning to stares as Rosalie walked Bull Street, her head high despite the ache. A cousin cornered her at the market, voice laced with faux concern. Ev was confused at the end. Poor thing. The meds. Rosalie laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Confused? She planned her own funeral flowers, lilies for the peace we found, not the chaos you imagine. The cousin flushed, retreating, but the barbs lingered, testing the soil of Rosalie's resolve. Yet in the quiet hours, when the shop's neon sign buzzed off and the city hummed to sleep, Rosalie returned to their cottage on the marsh's edge, a gingerbread house Evelyn had renovated, its porch swing creaking under ghosts. She sat there one twilight, the letter in her lap, watching fireflies dance like errant stars. The phone rang. Thomas. "Mom's selling the firm," he said. "Wants you to have Ev's blueprints." Said something about petals on paper. The gesture cracked her open, tears hot on her cheeks. Evelyn's designs weren't just lines on vellum. They were their love encoded, curved arches like entwined fingers, open courtyards for breath stolen in crowds. Rosalie drove to the Hargrove estate at dawn, the sky bruising purple over the oaks. Mrs. Hargrove waited on the steps, a leather portfolio in her arms. "She drew this one for you," she said, voice hushed. "The garden pavilion. For where wild things grow." Inside, the blueprints unfolded like petals, elevations of trellises heavy with climbing roses, a central fountain bubbling like laughter. "Build it," Mrs. Hargrove urged, her hand tentative on Rosalie's arm. "For her. For us to remember right." The touch was olive branch and anchor, the first bridge across the chasm. Construction began in spring, the pavilion rising on Hargrove land like a phoenix from the plot where Evelyn's ashes were scattered, wildflower seeds mixed in. For her will. Rosalie oversaw it daily, her florist hands calloused from trowels now, directing masons who joked about the boss lady with the green thumb. Thomas joined her often, hammering cedar beams while sharing stories. Evelyn's childhood forts, her teenage rebellions, the way she'd light up describing "this girl I know," without ever naming Rosalie. One afternoon, as vines took hold, Clara arrived with picnic baskets, fried green tomatoes, Evelyn's recipe, passed down through generations but spiced with her secret cayenne kick. The toddler chased butterflies, and for a moment, the air hummed with normalcy, the kind Rosalie had craved in hidden years. "You think she'd approve?" Clara asked, slicing tomatoes, juice staining her fingers red. Rosalie smiled, tracing a bloom. "She'd say it's perfect, messy edges, room to grow." Laughter bubbled, tentative, then free, weaving through the lattice like sunlight. But kitsch tinge shadowed even this fragile piece. A local paper ran a feature, Savannah's hidden heartbreak, architect's secret life uncovered, sensationalized, with grainy photos of the grave, the shop, Rosalie blurred in the background. Calls flooded, reporters sniffing for scandal, old acquaintances offering pity disguised as curiosity. Mrs. Hargrove fielded the worst, her voice steel over the phone. "My daughter's love was no secret to those who mattered. Leave it be." Rosalie, though, faced the fire head-on. She granted one interview. In the pavilion's half-shadowed shade, her voice steady as she spoke of love's quiet revolutions. "Evelyn taught me that secrets aren't chains, they're seeds. Plant them right, and they burst into something unbreakable." The article shifted tone, from tabloid to tribute, quotes from Thomas echoing her words. "We lost her once to silence. Won't happen again." Summer deepened, the pavilion complete, a sanctuary of stone and silk, benches carved with initials hidden in vine patterns, E and R, entwined forever. The dedication drew a crowd, family, friends, even David, who slipped Rosalie a note, "Sorry. Build beautiful," before vanishing into the heat. As dusk fell, fireflies igniting like Evelyn's eyes, Rosalie stood at the fountain's edge, water whispering secrets. Mrs. Hargrove approached, arm linked with Thomas's, Clara trailing with the child. "We scattered her here," she said. "But you brought her back." No words for the ache, the gift, just a shared silence, profound as prayer. Rosalie nodded, throat tight. She never left, just waiting for the light. The group lingered, stories flowing like the fountain. Evelyn's quirks, her loves, the woman they'd half known now whole in memory's bloom. In the years that followed, the pavilion became Savannah's quiet legend, a wedding venue for couples who'd hidden too long, a retreat for those rewriting their vows. Rosalie tended it, her florist touch ensuring every petal fell just so. She dated once, a gentle potter with soil-stained hands, but Evelyn's ghost was companion, not chain, a reminder that love's legacy outlives the body. One autumn eve, as leaves turned gold like their Vermont moon, Rosalie sat on the swing, a new letter in her lap, not Evelyn's, but one she'd written to the wind. "We did it, Ev," she murmured. "The garden's thriving. And so am I." Fireflies danced, the river sang, and in that hush, Rosalie felt it. Not closure, but continuation, the human truth that love, once rooted, defies every grave. The end came not with fanfare, but with a single bloom, a wild violet pushing through pavilion stone, unbidden, eternal. Rosalie smiled, plucking it gently. "For you," she whispered, tucking it into her hair. And in that act, the world righted, petal by petal, heart by heart. The violet's petal caught the breeze, carrying Rosalie's whisper across the marsh like a benediction, but back in the Hargrove kitchen months earlier, the real unraveling had just begun. It was the night after the funeral dinner, when the last guest's taillights faded down the oyster shell drive, leaving the house heavy with unspoken grief. Rosalie offered to clean up, anything to linger in the spaces Evelyn had filled with her presence, the scuff on the doorframe from her favorite boots, the faint chamomile scent clinging to the curtains she'd sewn herself during a rare lazy winter. Mrs. Hargrove waved her off, but her eyes, those steel-blue mirrors of Evelyn's, held a plea. "Stay," she said, the word foreign on her tongue. "Tell me about her. The her I didn't know." They settled in the den, fire crackling in the grate, photo albums splayed like open wounds. Rosalie traced a picture of Evelyn at 16, gap-toothed grin amid a sea of debutante gowns. "She hated those dresses," Rosalie said, voice soft with memory. "Said they itched like society's expectations. We'd sneak out after, her in my overalls, painting murals on abandoned warehouses down by the docks." The older woman leaned in, hunger in her posture. "Painting? She never." A pause, the chasm of missed moments yawning. Rosalie nodded, pulling a faded snapshot from her wallet, Evelyn mid-stroke, cobalt streaks in her hair, laughing as paint dripped onto Rosalie's nose. She was electric then. Designing wasn't just work, it was rebellion. "Our first real date. She sketched our future on a diner placemat, a house with a turret for stargazing, a garden wall free." Tears welled in Mrs. Hargrove's eyes, not the polite kind, but raw, wrenching. "I pushed her toward stability, David, the firm, the legacy. Thought love was a straight line." The irony hung unspoken. Rosalie reached across, tentative, her hand covering the older woman's. "It zigzags, like kudzu, but it covers everything eventually." Thomas wandered in then, nursing a scotch, his tie askew. "Heard that. Zigzags." He sank into an armchair, the firelight carving shadows on his face. "Remember when Ev dragged me to that protest in Atlanta? 98, the Marriage Equality March. I was scared shitless, Mom's church friends, you know? But she linked arms with everyone, chanting like it was her blueprint for the world." He chuckled, bitter-edged. "I thought it was a phase. God, what an idiot." Rosalie shook her head, the warmth of their shared regret binding them. She never phased out of anything. That March? She came home buzzing, planned our Vermont trip right there on the couch. Details spilled then, a floodgate cracked, the justice's gravelly voice under the maples, Evelyn's vows. "I promise to build with you, not for you." The cheap gold bands engraved with intertwined vines, cheap but eternal. Clara joined last, the baby monitor crackling softly. "I found her journal," she confessed, voice hushed. "Hid it in the nursery bookshelf, Entries about are my North Star, chemo days when she'd write poems about your hands and hers. She slid the leather-bound book across, pages yellowed with use. Rosalie opened it, Evelyn's script leaping like heartbeats. Today, Rosie's fingers wove through my four-line like forget-nots. If I fade, let her know she was my bloom. The room blurred, sobs sinking like a dirge. For the first time, Rosalie wept openly, not alone in the cottage but held. Thomas's arm awkward but firm around her shoulders, Clara's hand squeezing hers, Mrs. Hargrove murmuring apologies like prayers. "Forgive me," she whispered, "for the walls I built." "There's nothing to forgive," Rosalie managed. "You loved her your way. Now we love her ours." Dawn crept in, gray light filtering through lace curtains Evelyn had chosen for their airy feel. They parted with hugs that lingered, promises to reconvene. Rosalie drove home through mist-shrouded streets, the journal on the passenger seat a talisman. The cottage welcomed her with silence, but she filled it. Evelyn's sketches pinned anew, their wedding bands side by side on the mantel. Work pulled her back, the shop a sanctuary of scents and symmetries. Blooms and whispers buzzed with orders, but Rosalie's hands moved on autopilot, clipping stems while her mind wandered to uncharted tomorrows. A regular, old Mr. Landry shuffled in for his weekly roses, for the wife, God rest her, and paused, peering over spectacles. "Heard about Evelyn. Tough break. You too. Close, Savannah's vines worked fast. Rosalie nodded, ringing him up. Closer than close. He patted her hand, coins clinking. Good. Life's too short for half measures. Tell the family Landry sends pie. The gesture, small as a seed, rooted in her a reminder that secrets bred isolation, but truths, however jagged, fostered kin. The interview request came via email that afternoon from the Savannah Morning News Features editor. Your story's resonating, it read. Evelyn's legacy deserves light. Rosalie hesitated, fingers hovering over keys. Exposure meant scrutiny, the South's slow boil of judgment. But Evelyn's words echoed. Make them see us. She typed yes, scheduling for the pavilion site. The reporter, Lena, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a notebook tattoo on her wrist, arrived early, boots crunching gravel. This place, she said, gesturing to the half-built arches, it's like a love letter in stone. They walked the grounds, Rosalie recounting the Vermont vows, the cancer siege, the funeral's veil lift. Lena scribbled furiously, pausing at the fountain basin. And the family? How's that bridge holding? Shaky, but spanning, Rosalie admitted. Thomas helps with the build. Clara shares recipes. Mrs. Hargrove. She's trying. Sent me Evelyn's favorite teacup yesterday, chipped, from a childhood tea party. Lena's eyes softened. That's healing. Messy, but real. The piece dropped a week later, front page spread. Blossoms from ashes. The architect's hidden love takes root. Quotes wove through photos of the pavilion, Rosalie's face unblurred, Evelyn's ring glinting on her finger. Reactions cascaded, supportive notes from strangers, a bouquet from the LGBTQ center downtown, but barbs too, anonymous letters decrying deviant delusions, a church elder barring Rosalie from a neighborhood block party. She burned the hate mail in the cottage hearth, ashes scattering like doubts. Thomas called that night, voice laced with pride. Saw the article. Mom clipped it for the fridge, next to Ev's obituary. Laughter bubbled, unexpected. Dinner Sunday? Clara's making gumbo. The meal was a ritual reborn. Laughter over spilled wine, stories looping like the river outside. The toddler babbled flowers, pointing at Rosalie's braid, and Mrs. Hargrove smiled, genuine, unguarded. Evelyn would adore this, she said, passing the cornbread. Her family whole. But wholeness demanded reckoning. David appeared again, this time at the shop's closing bell, rain sheeting the windows. Read the piece, he said, no snarl, just weariness. Hurts, but fair. He shifted, boots scuffing the mat. Ev talked about you once, drunk at a firm party. Rosalie's the only one who sees the gardens in my sketches. I thought it was metaphor. Rosalie leaned on the counter, shears idle. It was. And more. Silence stretched, companionable now. Want to see the pavilion? Groundbreaking's tomorrow. He came, shovel in hand beside Thomas, the three of them turning earth under a sky clearing to blue. Sweat mingled with soil, banter easing old wounds. To Ev, David toasted later, over beers on the veranda. Who built better than any of us knew? Summer swelled, the pavilion's bones fleshing out, trellises climbing, stone paths winding like veins. Rosalie dated the potter, tentatively, coffee on the square, hands brushing over clay-glazed mugs. He was kind, earth-scented, but when he kissed her under live oaks, it felt like echo, not ignition. Friends, she suggested later, and he nodded, no bitterness. Evelyn set a high bar. The dedication loomed, invitations sent to a widening circle, center volunteers who'd fundraised for the build, Evelyn's colleagues sharing blueprints over potlucks. Rain threatened the eve, but clear to stars, fireflies and natural lantern show. Guests milled, toasting with sweet tea spiked with bourbon, the fountain's trickle underscoring vows renewed. Mrs. Hargrove spoke first, voice steady. Evelyn designed lives as much as structures. This one, it's ours, thanks to Rosalie. Applause rippled, Thomas adding, Sis always said love's the best architecture, strong foundations, open skies. Clara's turn brought tears. To hidden gardens, now in full bloom. Rosalie closed, ring warm in her palm. Evelyn and I planted secrets, but they grew into this, proof that love endures, reshapes, invites. She scattered violet seeds at the base, guests joining, hands in soil like communion. After, alone by the river, Rosalie felt Evelyn, not ghost, but presence, in the current's murmur, the night's embrace. The journal lay open at home, last entry. If I go, plant me where wild things are. Love you, eternal, Rosie. She whispered back. Planted. Thriving. Fall brought harvest, the pavilion hosting its first wedding, a young couple, hands trembling over rings, echoing Vermont's hush. Rosalie arranged the flowers, roses for passion, lavender for grace, magnolias for endurance. As petals rained, she slipped away, watching from the swing. Love, she thought, wasn't possession but propagation, seeds scattered, roots intertwining unseen. Winter softened the edges, holidays a new tradition. Hargroves and Rosalie trimming a tree with Evelyn's ornaments, stories swapped like gifts. Mrs. Hargrove gifted a locket, Evelyn's, with miniatures of them all inside. Room for you now, she said. Rosalie clasped it, heart full. Spring circled back, the violet thriving amid roses, a testament. Rosalie walked the paths daily, tending, remembering. One morning, a cardinal alighted. Evelyn's bird, bold red against green. Miss you, she said. The bird trilled, then flew free, as they all were now. In time, Rosalie wrote the book, Petals and Blueprints, vignettes of their life, proceeds to the center. It sold modestly, but each copy carried their truth. Signings drew faces like hers, hidden loves emerging, stories shared in hushed tones. You gave me courage, one said. Rosalie smiled. Evelyn did. I just held the shears. The cottage bloomed anew, walls papered in sketches, garden expanded to mirror the pavilion. She gardened with the toddler, now a girl named Evie, tiny hands in dirt. Auntie woes, she lisped. Point sequets. Rosalie knelt, pressing soil. No more secrets, love. Just blooms. And so the years wove on. Rosalie the florist no longer just that. Wife, architect of memory, guardian of gardens. Evelyn's light didn't dim. It refracted, illuminating paths for others. In the end, love's greatest design wasn't endurance, but evolution. the quiet miracle of roots breaking stone, petals unfurling to the sun. Yet evolution demanded its tempests, and the first gale hit not in winter's hush, but in the sultry haze of late spring, when the pavilion's vines thirsted for rain and Rosalie's heart, though mending, still echoed with hollows. The trouble brewed in the form of Harlan, Evelyn's old mentor at the firm, a silver-haired patrician with a drawl like aged bourbon and opinions as rigid as the columns he'd championed in Evelyn's early designs. He'd skipped the funeral, citing a conference in Charleston, but now, with the article's ink still fresh, he descended on the Hargrove estate like a hawk scenting vulnerability. Rosalie arrived for a progress check, blueprints under arm, shears in her truck bed, only to find Harlan ensconced in the den, gesturing grandly over sherry with Mrs. Hargrove. Thomas shot her a warning glance from the doorway, mouthing storm incoming. The florist, Harlan boomed as she entered, his eyes appraising her like flawed marble. Charming piece in the paper. Quite the romantic spin on Ev's indiscretions. The word landed like gravel in a gearbox. Mrs. Hargrove stiffened, but Harlan plowed on, swirling his glass. She was my protégée, you know, brilliant but headstrong. This dalliance of hers, it distracted her at the end. Sketches half-finished, clients murmuring. If she'd stuck to the path, who knows? Maybe beaten that damn disease. Rosalie's blood heated, but she set the blueprints down deliberately, voice even as a horizon line. Dalliance? 12 years isn't a detour, Harlan. It's the road she chose, freely, fiercely. She unfolded a sheet, the pavilion's heart, a skylight framing stars, Evelyn's nod to their turret dream. This, her last full design. Love didn't distract, it inspired. He snorted, peering at the paper like it offended. Poetic, but impractical. Open structures invite rot, much like unchecked affections. The room crackled, Thomas stepping forward. Enough. Ev's work speaks for itself. The firm's donating materials for this, your idea, remember? Harlan waved dismissively. A gesture. But legacy matters, boy. Evelyn Hargrove, visionary architect, not tabloid footnote. His gaze pinned Rosalie. And you, dear, sweet, but out of your depth. Flowers wilt, reputations endure. She met his stare, hazel eyes steady. Reputations built on sand crumble. Ours? Etched in stone. Grabbing the blueprints, she strode out, pulse thundering. In the truck, tears came hot, not for Harlan's barbs, but the echo of Evelyn's doubts, voiced in chemo fog. What if they remember me as the scandal, not the builder? Thomas followed, sliding into the passenger seat. Ignore the old buzzard. Mom shut him down after you left, said Ev's truth was non-negotiable. He paused, fiddling with the radio, static hissing like Harlan's drawl. But he's pushing to rename the pavilion Hargrove Legacy, erase the garden theme. Thinks it's too sentimental. Rosalie's grip tightened on the wheel. Over my shears. They drove in silence, the river a silver thread below, until Thomas broke it. Build it your way, Rosie. Ev would. She nodded, resolve hardening like mortar. The confrontation lingered, fueling late nights at the site. Rosalie worked by floodlight, weaving trellises herself, thorns nicking her palms like pennants. Clara dropped by with thermoses of chicory coffee, toddler in tow. Harlan's all bluster, she said, settling on a sawhorse. Ev told me once he propositioned her, subtly of course. She laughed it off, but it soured things. The revelation stung. Another layer peeled. She never said. Clara shrugged. Protecting you, probably. From the vultures. They watched Evie chase fireflies, giggles piercing the dark. This place, Clara continued. It's her antidote. Build it defiant. Word of Harlan's meddling spread, drawing allies. The center's director, Mia, a wiry woman with tattoos of circuit boards and roses, volunteered crews, hammers swinging in rhythm to protest playlists. For Ev, Mia grunted, nailing a beam. And every queer kid in this town sketching dreams in closets. Media circled back, Lena the reporter interviewing Harlan for Balance. His quotes dripped condescension, a tragic footnote, but the counterpunch came viral. Social shares of pavilion progress pics, hashtags, petals, and truth blooming online. A podcaster from Atlanta drove down, mic in hand, recording Rosalie's raw recount. Love isn't a footnote. It's the title page. Harlan's push faltered, the firm board voting neutral. Donations continued, but naming deferred. He cornered Rosalie at a chamber mixer. Bowtie askew, breath sherry sour. You're stirring pots you can't unboil. She clinked her glass to his. Good. Some stews need heat. Summer peaked in a heat wave, asphalt shimmering, the pavilion's shade a mercy. Weddings booked tentatively. The first couple, Jamie and Lee, non-binary and nervous, arrived with custom vows on linen. Rosalie arranged their arch, sunflowers for audacity, irises for faith. As they exchanged rings, Harlan lurked at the edge, invited by Thomas for closure. His face soured at the I do's, but when Jamie thanked Rosalie, "This space? It's our blueprint," he slipped away unchallenged. Post-ceremony, over punch, he approached deflated. Ev had fire. Like you. A concession grudging. Rosalie nodded. Join us sometime. See what fire builds. He didn't reply, but later emailed blueprints. Evelyn's early ones, annotated, RS influence, organic curves. The gesture cracked something in Rosalie, tears salting her garden salad that night. She framed the sketches, hanging them in the cottage beside the journal. Dating the potter resumed, casual, clay workshops where hands molded without pressure. No rush, he said, thumbs in wet earth. You're a whole garden already. Fall's first cool snap brought Harvest Festival vibes to the pavilion, strung lights, hayrides for donors, Evie crowned, flower queen with a daisy chain. Mrs. Hargrove manned the bake sale, her pecan pies a hit, chatting with center folks like old kin. Took me back, she told Rosalie later, to Ev's school fairs, always selling lemonade for causes. Thomas announced then, beer in hand, firms partnering on a scholarship, Evelyn Hargrove Memorial, for queer architects. Cheers erupted, Harlan in the crowd, clapping stiffly. Legacy reclaimed. Winter wrapped gentle, holidays amplified, tree trimming with Mia's crew, ornaments etched with vines. Rosalie gifted Mrs. Hargrove a pressed violet locket, Evelyn's favorite. For the heart you share. Tears, then hugs, the family circle widened. Spring 2026 dawned vibrant, the pavilion's first anniversary marked with a sunrise service. Couples gathered, sharing stories under arches now lush. Rosalie spoke last. 1 year. Ev's garden grows because we do, together. A cardinal sang, read as promise. Challenges lingered, zoning whispers of vandals' graffiti, unnatural, scrubbed at dawn, but community rose, paints and petitions flowing. Rosalie led a workshop, designing love, blending florals and sketches, attendees mapping dreams on butcher paper. The potter became partner, not lover, collaborations on ceramic planters for the site. Platonic petals, he joked. Rosalie laughed free. In quiet moments, she visited Bonaventure, violet in hand. We're blooming, Ev. Your blueprint holds. Wind rustled moss. Affirmation soft. Life's design unfolded. Evie's first sketch, a wobbly pavilion, framed proudly. Thomas mentored center kids. Mrs. Hargrove hosted brunches blending chamomile and gossip. Harlan retired, sending one last note. Well built. Rosalie, at 40, felt rooted yet reaching. Love's evolution a daily bloom, thorns and all. The world, once veiled, now vivid. Petals open, truths etched eternal. Thorns pricked deepest in the uncharted, and for Rosalie, that came wrapped in the guise of renewal, a blind date arranged by Clara, who wielded matchmaking like a trowel, insistent after the potter's platonic pivot. You're healing, Clara said over lunch at the pirate's house, shrimp and grits steaming between them. But gardens need pollinators, Rosie. Meet Sophia. Artist from the co-op. Trusts your green thumb already. Rosalie demurred, fork spearing a grit lump. Not ready. Ev's shadow. Clara's eyes softened, toddler crumbs dusting her lap. Shadows feed the light. Give it a shot for Ev's wild side. The plea tugged, Evelyn's voice echoing from memory. Live messy, Rosie. Daisies in the cracks. Sophia arrived at the pavilion's twilight tour. A fundraiser Mia had roped Rosalie into leading, lanterns flickering along paths. She was a contrast to Evelyn's sharp lines. Mid-30s, sun-kissed curls framing a face etched with laugh creases, overalls splashed with acrylics, carrying a canvas tote bulging with sketch pods. Clara's tales don't do you justice, she said, handshake firm, paint under nails like shared soil. This place? It's alive. The tour unfolded, guests oohing at the fountain's mosaic, tiles Evelyn had sourced from a Charleston salvage yard, each chipped edge a story. Sophia lingered at the skylight, head tilted. Stars a-ceiling. Bold. Rosalie nodded, pulse quickening. Not thunder, but a gentle rain. Ev's idea, said Roof's Limit Dreams. Post-tour, over wine by the swing, conversation flowed easy. Sophia's murals and Atlanta's Beltline, battles with galleries gatekeeping women's work. Sound familiar? She asked, swirling Merlot. Rosalie shared the Harlan saga, laughter bubbling at his bowtie defeat. You pruned him good, Sophia teased, eyes sparkling like dew on petals. The date proper followed. A week later, picnic at Wormslow's Oak Alley, Tabby Ruins whispering history. Sophia unpacked Gouda and figs, easel-propped casual. Paint while we talk? Rosalie agreed, sketching wildflowers on a napkin while Sophia captured the live oak's lacework. Stories spilled. Rosalie's making girlhood, hiding crushes in library stacks, Sophia's immigrant parents in Miami, equating art with rebellion. They came around, Sophia said, brush-dipping cerulean. Slowly, like tides. Kisses came natural, under moss veils, soft, exploratory, no ghosts barring the way. Yet that night, in the cottage, Rosalie's sleep fractured. Dreams of Evelyn sketching Sophia's curls, whispering share the garden. She woke sweating, journal open to love expands, doesn't erase. Doubt bloomed insidious, mirroring old patterns. At the shop, arranging a bridal bouquet, peonies for prosperity, she confided in Mr. Landry, his roses wilting slightly. New bloom, eh? Careful. Thorns on the fresh ones. He winked, but his words rooted worry. Harlan's echo lingered too, a voicemail left unreturned. Heard you're entertaining. Don't tarnish her memory. Clara sensed the snag at Sunday gumbo, Evie smearing okra on her high chair. Sophia's smitten. You? Rosalie stirred her bowl, steam rising like questions. Scared. What if its rebound roots shallow? Clara squeezed her knee under the table. Roots deepen with time. Ev would cheer. Remember her Tybee fling before us? Practice for the real petal, she joked. The nudge propelled. A second date, pottery wheel at Sophia's studio, clay spinning between palms. Hands guided, Sophia's breath warm on her neck. Let go, she murmured, as the vessel rose lopsided, beautiful in flaw. Dinner after, paella at a hole-in-wall, stories of exes turning to anecdotes, not anchors. Back at the cottage, love-making unfolded tentative then fervent, bodies mapping new terrains, Evelyn's ring on the nightstand a sentinel, not shackle. Morning brought clarity over coffee, Sophia sketching Rosalie tousled-haired at the window. You're a study in light, she said. Rosalie traced the lines, vulnerability raw. This, us, feels like grafting. Ev's branch, your bloom. Sophia set the pad aside, cupping her face. Grafts grow stronger. Hybrids, not halves. But the world tested grafts early. A center gala loomed. Evelyn's scholarship launch, black tie under pavilion lights. Rosalie invited Sophia, nerves jangling like wind chimes. Meet the tribe, she said. Sophia grinned. Bring the thorns. The night shimmered, donors and sequins, Mia emceeing with mic drop flair, Evie in a frilly dress twirling for applause. Harlan attended, subdued in tales, toasting the fund. Sophia mingled seamless, charming board members with mural pitches, dancing with Rosalie to a jazz quartet's slow sway. Proud of you, she whispered, hand low on her back. Then the pivot. Mrs. Hargrove pulled Rosalie aside mid-waltz, expression stormy. Who's the strumpet? The slur Jared, sherry on her breath. Rosalie stiffened. Sophia. Artist. Kind. The older woman's lips thinned. Too soon. Ev's barely cold, metaphorically. Guests whirled oblivious, but Thomas hovered, sensing rift. Love doesn't calendar, Rosalie countered, voice low. Ev wanted life, not mausoleums. Mrs. Hargrove's eyes flashed, grief's old fire. You're diluting her. We just got you, now this? The words cut, reopening the chasm. Rosalie excused herself, air thick, finding Sophia by the fountain. Family drama, she explained, abbreviated. Sophia nodded, no probe. Want backup. The offer steadied, and together they faced Mrs. Hargrove, Thomas mediating. Mom, progress isn't betrayal. Apologies stumbled, overwhelmed, scared of losing more, ending in a truce hug, stiff but sincere. The gala peaked with awards, first scholarship to a trans teen architect, teary speech on blueprints beyond binaries. Rosalie, podium-bound for thanks, glanced at Sophia, thumb up, eyes proud, then at Evelyn's plaque, vines engraved. To grafts that grow, she toasted. Cheers thundered. Aftermath brought integration. Sophia at Hargrove dinners, sketching Evie portraits, Mrs. Hargrove critiquing her canvases, thawing to bold strokes. Harlan sent a mural commission, pavilion mural, Evelyn's skyline fused with florals. Redemption arc, Sophia laughed, palette knife flashing. Summer deepened bonds. Road trip to Vermont, retracing vows, Sophia's hand in Rosalie's as maples rustled. They renewed nothing, forward only, picnicking where rings once exchanged, Sophia sketching the meadow. Our chapter, she said. Rosalie kissed her, violet-scented. Challenges nipped. Sophia's gallery show in Atlanta, distance testing trust, a vandalized trellis, sinner scrawled in red. Community rallied, paint parties, center patrols, turning threat to tapestry. Fall harvested fruits. Joint exhibit. Rosalie's arrangements beside Sophia's abstracts, roots and revolutions. Sales funded scholarships, Harlan buying the centerpiece. Winter cozied. Holidays with blended rites, Miami empanadas, Savannah carols, Evie calling Sophia anti-flow. Mrs. Hargrove gifted joint art supplies. For the next bloom. Spring 2027. Pavilion's second year. Weddings doubling. A commitment ceremony for Mia and her wife under the arch Rosalie officiated. Words borrowed from Evelyn. Build wild. Love deep. In quiet, Rosalie visited the grave. Sophia beside. Violets shared. Thanks for the garden, she said to stone. Wind answered. Cardinal wing. Love's evolution. Not replacement, but expansion. Petals layering. Roots communal. Rosalie, Sophia entwined. Tended it all. Thorns tools now. Blooms boundless. Boundless didn't preclude breakers, and the next wave crashed in autumn's amber glow. When Sophia's past washed up unbidden, a ex-lover, Marco, materializing at the gallery opening like a sketch erased incompletely. The exhibit, intertwined, filled a Tybee loft with Rosalie's floral installations and Sophia's vibrant abstracts, scents of jasmine mingling with turpentine. Guests whirled, Hargroves included, Thomas toasting with a conch shell, when Marco sauntered in, leather jacket slung over broad shoulders, accent thick as Cuban coffee. Sophie me lose, he purred, air-kissing cheeks, eyes lingering too long. Sophia stiffened beside Rosalie. Flute of Prosecco paused mid-sip. Marco. Been years. He grinned, wolfish, clapping her back. Years? Feels yesterday. Saw your work online, brilliant as always. Who's the muse? Gaze sliding to Rosalie, appraising. She extended a hand, steady. Rosalie. Co-creator. His clasp lingered, thumb brushing knuckles. Ah, the florist from the papers. Evelyn's. Widow. Bold exhibit theme. The lilt masked barbs, but Rosalie caught them, petal sharp. Sophia steered him to a canvas, swirls of indigo and rose, their Tybee picnic abstracted. Old news, she said firmly. Life moves. Marco chuckled, undeterred. Moves? To Savannah's charm? I just relocated, consulting gig in Bluffton. We should catch up. Dinner? The invitation hung, tension coiling like Spanish moss. Mrs. Hargrove, overhearing, pursed lips but held tongue, progress her quiet victory. Rosalie excused herself to the veranda, waves crashing below, heart a drumbeat. Jealousy? No. Echo of old insecurities, Evelyn's placeholders haunting. Sophia followed, door clicking shut. Ex from art school. Dramatic, possessive. Ended ugly, cheating, accusations. She leaned on the rail, curls wind-tossed. He's harmless fog. You're the sun. Kiss sealed it, salt-tanged, but Marco's shadow clung. He persisted. Text to Sophia, remember Havana nights? Voicemails for Rosalie. Curious about the secret wife lore. Blocked, but he appeared at the pavilion, strolling the historic sites, lingering during a wedding setup. Bridesmaids giggled at his charm, but Rosalie clipped roses fiercer, thorns drawing blood. Confrontation brewed at the center's harvest dance, lanterns strung, fiddles wailing. Marco crashed, bottle of rum in hand, pulling Sophia for a spin. For old times. Laughter forced, but her eyes sought Rosalie across the floor. Thomas intercepted, clapping Marco's shoulder. Enjoying the view? Buy a ticket next time. Deflection light, but pointed. Rosalie watched, gut twisting. Not possession, but pattern's fear. Love eroded by echoes. Mia pulled her aside, punch cup steaming. Exes are weeds. Yank 'em. Advice landed, and post-dance, Rosalie cornered Marco by the bonfire. Boundaries, Marco. Sophia's chosen. He smirked, flames gilding his jaw. Chosen? Like Evelyn chose you. Till death? I'm the upgrade. No baggage, pure passion. The jab pierced, Evelyn's memory weaponized. Rosalie stepped closer, voice low thunder. Passion without roots withers. Walk away, or we'll plant you 6 feet under irrelevance. He blinked, bravado cracking, then laughed. Genuine this time. Feisty. Ev picked well. He raised his bottle. To upgrades. Vanished into night, tail lights fading. Sophia exhaled later, curled on the cottage couch. You okay? Rosalie nodded, tracing her arm. Learning. Love's not fragile glass, it's resilient vine. They made love slow, reclaiming space. Marco's fog burned off. Winter brought clarity's chill. Marco relocated again. Miami calling, a postcard apology. Fog clears. Be happy. Sophia framed it ironically, beside Evelyn's locket. Holidays deepen ties. Joint Hargrove-Windsor feast. Sophia's parents flying in, abuela's flen clashing sweetly with pecan pie. Evie dubbed Sophia Tia, teaching her daisy chains. Spring 2028. Pavilion expansions, a library wing. Evelyn's books donated, Sophia muraling walls with storybook vines. Harlan's final gift, endowment for the wing, note. For narratives untold. Challenges shifted external. Town council eyeing the land for condos. Progress code for erasure. Rosalie rallied. Petitions, op-eds, Mia's legal eagles. Protests bloomed. Rainbow flags on trellises, chants echoing Evelyn's march. Council relented, landmark status granted, pavilion preserved. Summer solstice, commitment ceremony for Rosalie and Sophia, under skylight stars. No rings, vows etched on a shared blueprint. We build, we bloom, together. Guests, Hargrove's tearful, center kin cheering, Evie scattering petals. Mrs. Hargrove officiated, voice steady. In Evelyn's honor, I witnessed this. Fall harvested collaborations, book tour for petals and blueprints, Sophia illustrating sequels. Marco sent a signed print from Havana, waves and wildflowers caption. Clear skies. Winter's hush. First snow in Savannah. Rare dusting on the pavilion. Rosalie and Sophia danced in it, Evie giggling, Thomas shoveling paths. Family, Mrs. Hargrove said, cocoa steaming. Spring eternal. Violets rampant, a new generation sketching under arches. Rosalie, Sophia hand in hand, felt the design complete, not end, but endless unfolding. Love's true architecture, flexible, fierce, forever grafting new growth. Forever's flex tested in the mundane's forge, and for Rosalie and Sophia, that anvil was parenthood's unexpected hammer. Evie's plea at 4, wide-eyed over breakfast waffles. Auntie Woes, Tia's sofa, baby sister? The question, innocent as dandelion fluff, landed amid syrup drips, Clara choking on coffee across the table. Rosalie paused, fork midway, hazel eyes meeting Sophia's brown, surprise, then spark. A sister? Sophia echoed, curls tied in a flour-dusted scarf from morning baking. Evie nodded vigorously, syrup smeared. Like me and Bubba, but for you. Clara recovered, grinning. Out of the mouths. Think on it, y'all. Ev would plots. The seed planted, germinating through summer's languid heat. Discussions unfolded on pavilion benches, fireflies winking approval. Adoption pros, community ties, center connections, cons, logistics, the ghost of Evelyn's childless choice, chemo's cruel theft. She wanted kids, Rosalie confessed one dusk, head on Sophia's lap. Talked names, Lila for lilac, Theo for theory. Sophia stroked auburn strands. Then let's honor that. Build our branch. Process launched fall. Home studies, the cottage appraised. Charming chaos of sketches and soil. Social worker, Ms. Patel, toured with clipboard, nodding at the garden. Nurturing space. Interviews peeled layers. Rosalie's widowhood, Sophia's art nomadic past, their graft seamless. Love's mosaic, Ms. Patel deemed, approving. Matching weights stretched winter, holidays bittersweet, Evie practicing big sister duties on dolls. Mrs. Hargrove knit booties, tentative, a grandchild of sorts. Thomas built a crib, Clara stocked diapers. Hope frosted windows, but doubts nipped. What if we're mismatched? Sophia fretted, easel idle. Rosalie pulled her to the fountain. Mismatched blooms, strongest hybrids. Spring 2029, call came mid-pruning, 6-month-old Lila. Abandoned in Atlanta foster, dark curls and olive skin like Sophia's kin, hazel flecks echoing Rosalie. She's waiting, agency voice crackled. Drive blurred, hearts pounding, arriving to tiny fists waving, gummy smile disarming. Homecoming parade. Hargrove's lining the drive, Evie clutching a big sis sign. Lila's cries hushed at Rosalie's hum, Evelyn's lullaby, wild things sleep under moons. Sophia cradled her first, tears salting cheeks. Our bloom. Parenthood's rhythm crashed immediate, nights fractured by wails, days a blur of bottles and burps. Rosalie juggled shop orders, Sophia gallery deadlines, tag teaming with exhaustion's edge. First fight erupted week 3, Lila colicky. You snapped at Evie. Sophia accused, pacing kitchen. Rosalie formula splashed, fired back. You're painting till midnight. I'm drowning. Words hung, then hugs, apologies over takeout. Learning curve, Sophia murmured. Like clay molded. Community cradled. Mia's doula tips, Clara's freezer meals, Center playgroups where Lila cooed at Rainbow Mobiles. Mrs. Hargrove evolved Grandma, rocking Lila with stories of Evelyn's infancy. Fussy, like her auntie. Thomas built forts. Evie bossed with glee. Challenges crested summer. Lila's fever spiking. Air dash at midnight. Rosalie gripping Sophia's hand in sterile wait. Fever's viral, Doc assured, but fear lingered. Evelyn's hospital ghosts rising. We can't lose her, Rosalie whispered. Sophia kissed her temple. We won't. Team. Milestones bloomed fall. First tooth, crawl across pavilion paths. Gurgle, ma, ambiguous but heart-melting. Sophia captured it in oils. Lila amid violets. Titled New Roots. Exhibits sold out. Funds to foster programs. Winter holidays amplified. Lila's first tree, baubles batted. Sophia's parents visiting. Abuela's cooing in Spanish, blending flan with fudge. Evie directed the nativity. Lila as baby flower. Spring 2030. Lila's first steps, tottering to Rosalie under the arch. Sophia filming teary. To many more. They toasted, champagne fizzing. External wins. Council redux. Budget cuts threatening center funding. Rosalie testified, Lila on hip. This space saves lives, builds families. Victory. Grant secured, pavilion hub for foster arts. Parenting's forge tempered them. Date nights reclaimed, pottery and picnics. Therapy sessions unpacking widow's echoes. Ev's proud, Sophia said one session. Rosalie nodded. And present, in Lila's laugh. Lila grew, curls wild, hazel eyes curious, toddling into gardens, puddles, at 2. Evie mentored, Sissy inseparable. Family swelled. Clara's second, Thomas adopting a son, mosaic expanding. Challenges mellowed, teething tantrums, preschool jitters, but joys outweighed. Lila's first word clear, mama, dual, to both. Sophia's mural series, family portraits, Evelyn cameo in vines. Fall harvest, pavilion festival, Lila crowned flower girl, dancing with Evie. Mrs. Hargrove, grayer, beamed, full circle. Winter's peace, snow again, Lila's mittened hands in snow petals. Rosalie, Sophia entwined on porch, watching. Our blueprint, Sophia whispered. Spring eternal. Lila's garden plot, violets and sunflowers side by side. Love's design. Not solitary bloom, but thriving thicket, roots shared, petals for all. Thickets thrive invited prunings, and the sharpest shears came from within. Rosalie's midlife murmurings, stirring at 42 as Lila turned 3, her pigtails bouncing through the cottage like mini cyclones. It began subtle. Stares in the shop mirror at faint silver threads weaving auburn, hands veined from years of earth and effort. Who am I now? She journaled one dawn, Lila snoring soft beside Sophia, the woman who'd grafted so seamlessly yet stirred a restlessness, a whisper of solo soil. Sophia noticed first, over breakfast burritos, Lila finger-painting yogurt. Earthbound today? She asked, thumb wiping a smear from Rosalie's cheek. Rosalie shrugged, forcing smile. Just. 42 feels like intermission. Ev's age when. Trail off, the unsaid heavy. When cancer called curtain. Therapy resumed, solo sessions with a new counselor, Dr. Reyes, soft-spoken with a garden office, Fern's nodding agreement. Midlife's not crisis, she framed, but clarity. What calls? Rosalie unpacked. The pavilion's success, a monument yet tether. Sophia's vibrancy, beloved but eclipsing her own spark. I built for Ev, then us. Now. Home. She voiced it tentative. Post-bedtime. Wine loosening tongues. Need space too. Roots solo. Workshops. Maybe travel. Not leaving, just breathing. Sophia's face flickered. Hurt, then understanding. Her artist's eye for nuance. Eclipse fear? Take the moon, love. I'll hold the sun. Hugs lingered, but sleep came fitful. The sabbatical brewed summer. Rosalie enrolled in a Maine floral intensive, coastal wilds, arranging driftwood and dune blooms. Sophia waved her off at the airport, Lila clutching a miss you drawing. Grow wild, Sophia said, kiss fierce. Maine unfurled raw, salt winds scouring doubts, instructors pushing intuitive design, vases of sea holly and beach roses, asymmetrical, alive. Nights by lobster pot fires, journaling deepened. Ev, you were my wild. Now I chase mine. Botanical illustration courses? A solo exhibit? Clarity crystallized. A book sequel. Wild roots. Personal essays laced with sketches. Return brought reintegration. Sophia's welcome home mural. Lila's tackle hug. But adjustment chafed. Rosalie's sketches cluttering tables. Late-night inspirations clashing with bedtime routines. Your light's brighter, Sophia admitted one spat. Brushes abandoned. Feels like I'm dimming. Rosalie cupped her face. No, harmonizing. Like jazz, not symphony. They navigated. Date jars, slips for solo sketch time. Couple coastal drive. Couples therapy, Dr. Reyes mediating. Growth's not linear, she affirmed. Twine don't tangle. External echoes amplified. Pavilion's 5th anniversary gala, Harlan's successor proposing expansion, a Rosalie wing for arts therapy. Your legacy, board said. Tempting, but she countered. Collaborative. Sophia's murals center input. Vote passed, groundbreaking with Lila wielding tiny shovel. Fall's palette inspired. Rosalie launched Wild Roots workshops at the Pavilion, women mapping inner gardens via petals and prose. Sophia joined, her abstracts complementing. Lila assisted, scattering seeds. Enrollees bonded. Widows, artists, moms, circles widening. Challenges crested winter. Books publisher pushed memoir angle. Evelyn's shadow. Rosalie resisting. My light now. Rewrite fought for. Published spring 2031. Covers of solo violets. Essays on grafting self. Launch packed the Pavilion. Sophia emceeing. Lila reading a poem. Mama's world is big, but home is us. Reviews bloomed. Tender evolution. Atlanta Journal. Royalties funded scholarships. Marco, now ally reviewing. From fog to fire. Summer travels twinned. Family road trip to Vermont. Lila tracing Valmeadows. Solo for Rosalie. Smokey's sketching with Evelyn's old kit. Miss you. To stars, but return buoyant. Fall harvest. Joint exhibit. Grafted wilds. Rosalie's illustrations. Sophia's paint. Sold brisk. Lila's finger paint. Masterpiece centerpiece. Winter's introspection. Family ski retreat. Clumsy slopes and cocoa confessions. Mrs. Hargrove, frail now, pulled Rosalie aside. Proud. Ev too. Tears froze on lashes. Spring 2032. Lila's preschool garden day. Rosalie guest teaching. Sophia filming. Violets thrive. New shoots everywhere. Midlife's clarity. Not eclipse, but constellation. Stars shared, yet singular shine. Rosalie, Sophia, Lila. Thicket thriving. Roots resilient. Petals perpetual. Perpetual petals weathered gales, and the fiercest for Rosalie came not from self-doubt's whisper but legacy's roar, a biopic pitch from a Savannah producer, sniffing indie gold, in The Florist's Forbidden Love. It landed via email post-Wild Roots buzz, script outline glorifying Evelyn's tragic romance, Rosalie reduced to devoted sidekick, Cancer the climax, Pavilion footnote. She forwarded to Sophia over dinner, Lila Abed, Evie visiting with teen sass. Hollywood whitewash, Sophia scoffed, scrolling. Ev's a saint, you're the prop? Rosalie nodded, gut churning. Misses the mess, the galls, the graphs. Our truth. Response drafted polite no, but producer persisted. Calls. Lunches at the old pink house. Charm offensive. Think Carol meets fried green tomatoes. Oscar bait. He waived contracts, residuals tempting for center funds. Thomas advised caution. Firm's lawyers can vet. Mrs. Hargrove over tea bristled. Ev's no melodrama. But control it, tell her story right. Temptation tugged. Visibility for Queer South. Scholarship swelled. Sophia countered. Our narrative, not theirs. They workshopped counteroffer. Consultants Rosalie, Sophia, Mia, script veto power. Negotiations dragged summer. Revisions ping-ponging, producer yielding to authentic grit. Harlan cameos as antagonist, midlife arcs for Rosalie. Lila, eavesdropping, declared, I be baby acta. Laughter diffused tension. Fall shoot loomed. Casting calls in Atlanta. Rosalie screen testing lines from her journals. Feels exposing, she confided to Dr. Reyes. Like undressing memory. Therapy unpacked. Control illusions, Evelyn's pride in exposure. Greenlight hit winter 2032. Petals unfurled, budget modest. Director queer Savannah native promising nuance. Filming spring. Pavilion as set, locals extras. Rosalie on-site, script tweaks daily, adding Lila's cameo, Sophia's mural backdrops. Challenges crashed, producer clashes. Too much joy, less tragedy. Rosalie walking set once, Mia mediating. Tabloid leaks. Florist's revenge porn? Sophia's arm steel. Our frame. Rap party. Bonfire under arches. Cast toasting to Evelyn's echo. Premiere Fall 2033. Festival buzz. Standing ovation. Reviews lauded. Heart-wrenching yet hopeful. A Southern queer odyssey. Oscars nod. Adapted screenplay. Rosalie podium thank you. For graphs that outlast reels. Legacy swelled. Screenings fund global scholarships. Pavilion tours booked. Lila, 5 now, boasted my mom's movie. Evie rolled eyes, but hugged. Personal tides. Sophia's solo show in NYC. Rosalie minding Lila. Gallery walls alive with her fire. Mr. Spark, on return. Rosalie grinned. Brought kindling. Winter holidays. Film family viewing, tears and cheers. Mrs. Hargrove, in hospice whispers, watched frail. Ev smiles. Past peaceful. Violet's bedside. Spring 2034. Memorial Pavilion Rose. Mrs. Hargrove wing. Library expanded. Lila's scattered petals. Nana's garden. Summer travels. Family to Havana. Marco hosting. Forged kin. Rum toasts to upgrades. Fall harvest. Petal sequel book. Sophia co-author. Lila illustrates. First published at 6. Winter's peace. Snow petals again. Lila's snow angel wings. Rosalie, Sophia, Evie, Lila. Constellation complete. Spring eternal. New violet strain. Hargrove hybrid. Resilient, radiant. Love's roar. Not storm, but symphony. Echoing, evolving, ever blooming.